Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We're so happy that you've joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over. You will have learned a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to prepare them, what their nutritional value is, all about their history and origin. We hope you'll find it interesting, and we hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only to improve your health, but to enjoy their deliciousness while you do so. Hello, listeners. Thanks for joining us here on the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Stepp. I'm the executive editor of Produce Buzz. We're joined once again by our fearless leader, Teresa Nolan, and the microwavable Rick Stepp, and the lovely Cynthia Benedetto, both contributors to Produce Buzz. Today we're going to tell you a little bit about a little fruit or veggie that you may not be too familiar with, but chances are you've eaten it somewhere sometime. And we're going to play our mystery fruit or veggie quiz challenge. Tune in and stay tuned in to see if you can guess today's mystery fruit or veggie. So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, Teresa Nolan is going to tell us about a vegetable that, or maybe it's a fruit. She's going to tell us which, but you may not be so familiar with it. But if you've been to a Mexican restaurant, you probably, or may have very likely, eaten this fruit. And it's a fruit that we're seeing more and more in the grocery stores across America. So, Teresa, what are you going to tell us about today?
As I was looking around in the produce department, I saw the tomatillos. And I thought, I've never tried to do anything with tomatillos. I've had them where they were added to a guacamole, and it was an excellent guacamole. And I thought, I should learn how to use these things. So I purchased some, brought them home, looked up some recipes, and one of the recipes said put them in the broiler for a few minutes until they start to get kind of burnt, and then take them out. Of course, you want to take the husk off first because you're just going to brown the actual fruit that's inside. That's how I started working with them. The fruit itself, it's in the nightshade family, and they have that greenish brown husk that will cover the tomato-like fruit or vegetable that's inside. It could be green, yellow, or purple. I've never seen the purple ones. I've probably seen some yellow ones and green ones, but no purple ones. So they have that paper shell around them. That changes from green to brown and begins to crack. So that's how you know that they're ready to harvest.
What changes then, from the husk changes from green?
The husk itself changes from green to brown, and that's how you know it is ready to harvest. But you don't want to pick tomatillos, where the inner fruit or vegetable is visible. It's a very heart healthy, as most fruits and vegetables are, because it's low in sodium, rich in potassium, and consuming tomatillos could help to regulate your blood pressure, especially if you're consuming a lot of sodium and in other ways, and you substitute the tomatillo for those sodium-rich foods. And they provide a lot of vitamins A and C, which are both antioxidants against free radicals. Then they also contain fiber, and one of the benefits of fruits and vegetables is their fiber content, because fiber is the indigestible part of the carbohydrate. It can help reducing your cholesterol by acting as a binder and pulling cholesterol out of the body. It is a good source of phytochemicals called withanolides. And these have been shown to induce cell death in colon cancer cells. So that's being looked into. And it may help to reduce inflammation. In fact, in some Indian medicine, it's used as a treatment for arthritis. They're also a good source of several key nutrients for eye health. There are only 21 calories in tomatillos per half cup serving. So if you buy the tomatillos, you want to look for the fruits that have a split in the husk, but you don't want to see the whole tomatillo, the little tomato-like thing, exposed. You can keep them in their husks. And if you want to keep them long-term, you can spread them in a container about 1 layer deep and store in a well-ventilated place. And I have read that the tomatillos can last for months stored like that. If you put them in the refrigerator, you put them in a paper bag for no more than 2 weeks. And don't store them in plastic, as this will cause rapid spoilage. They can be eaten whole, but they're not really a replacement for tomatoes in a lot of dishes. Eat them in a salsa, or as I mentioned earlier, you can add them to guacamole. And that's what I did when I was putting together my experimental recipe. I just made up my regular guacamole recipe with avocado and cilantro and lime juice. And then I added the tomatillos to them after I had broiled the tops of the little individual tomatillos. They turn black, and then you just take them and you cut them up and put them in the guacamole, and it gives a real citrusy type flavor to the guacamole. So I really enjoyed it.
Up, do you chop it very finely, or how coarse do you chop them?
I just chopped them up, relatively small, so that you can still taste the skins, but not so large that you're getting big chunks.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
So you can, when you put them in, you can mash them a little bit,
so they get soft enough.
All the juices come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the juices come out, and it's really good. Now, this is something very unusual that I found out about tomatillos. It's very difficult to treat mumps. Mumps are a viral disease, and apparently there's something in tomatillos that allows you to treat mumps. Very strange. They alleviate the inflammation and reduce the pain. And they said that was because of its analgesic, anti-inflammatory, and antibacterial quality. I had never seen anything quite like that. And then the other thing was strep throat. They could be used for strep throat. We don't have a lot of mumps in this country right now, but with heavy immigration and some people not believing in vaccinating their kids, there has been a slight resurgence. So it's just something kind of different about tomatillos.
Right.
And tomatillos means little tomato in Spanish. And that's exactly what they look like.
Except for the husks.
Right.
A little tomato growing out of a corn plant.
Yeah. I've never made salsa verde. I've probably had it in some type of Mexican food, but have any of you ever made a salsa verde?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I love it. It's very good. And you roast them, as you say. I didn't roast them to become black, but you do roast them beforehand to soften them up a bit and to give them probably a little, get the sweetness. When you roast things like that, it brings out the sugars. And then it makes it easier to chop up. Actually, I put it in a blender, just blend them up with almost anything else you'd put in salsa except for tomatoes and tomatillos instead, and it comes out green. So that's what I meant when I said many of our listeners may not know what a tomatilla is, but if they've been to a Mexican restaurant, they probably or very likely could have had a green salsa, and they've eaten tomatillas before, but didn't know where that came from.
Yes. Well, to me, it was always like, what do I do with them? I would see them and I would think it'd be kind of fun to buy those, but I just didn't know exactly how to handle them, or probably it was a time when I just didn't have a lot of time to do any research.
Did you find any other interesting recipes? Did you find any other interesting recipes besides salsa and guacamole?
In addition to the salsa verde, you can have a roasted tomatillo soup, cucumber gazpacho with tomatillos.
That sounds good.
And a tomato and tomatillo salad. And I saw one recipe, black-eyed pea chili verde.
Wow.
So you could do that one for New Year's Day. And tomatillo rice.
Oh.
So
Those sound
quite a
like
few
really,
unusual.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, like Rick said, just it could be substituted also like just a tomato, not just a green tomato, probably. You could just put it in. It would probably go well with a lot of different dishes. So
Yeah.
very good. Any more about tomatillos, Teresa?
I think that wraps it up.
Okay, very good. Let's
No
wrap it up.
puns.
And that's husk. All right. Well, very good.
I would like to say one thing about the tomatillos. You can use in my opinion, you can use a tomatillo for anything that you'd use a green tomato for. Because to me, they taste better than regular green tomatoes. But I would say you could substitute them for anything that you'd use a green tomato for.
There's only one way to use green tomatoes, fried green tomatoes, right?
Well, I had a Mexican restaurant in Charlotte that we sold to that made I guess you call it salsa verde, the green salsa. They made that, and they didn't use tomatillos, probably because they weren't available.
That's it.
I would deliver to them 15 cases of green tomatoes every week and 35 cases of red tomatoes every week. And they made their own fresh salsa. So, yeah, green tomatoes make a great salsa. You can fry them. I've even heard of a green tomato pie. I've never tried it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I used to work for Jack Scalisi Produce, my clients were chefs predominantly. It was chefs in restaurants or country clubs. A few of my chefs, I would go in to visit, and one of my chefs had some tomatillos. I'm like, what do you do with those? And he's like, oh my gosh, you could put them in anything. So that night, he sent me home with some, and I did not roast them. But what I did was cut the top off and just chopped them and threw them in with chicken or whatever I was cooking and just kind of added it to the dish.
Yeah, that makes sense. As you're cooking it, you wouldn't need to roast it if you're going to put it in a dish that's also boiling or whatever. That makes sense.
But it was interesting. It kind of it wasn't sticky, but it has a very unusual feel to it.
It is sticky. There's some kind of rosin or something underneath that husk, right, Teresa?
Yes, it is. They're supposed to be sticky, and that's something I forgot to mention, is that you want them to have the stickiness. If they don't, it probably means they're old. So, yeah.
Drying out, I guess. Yeah.
I had someone gave me about 5 pounds of those. In fact, it was my brother-in-law. He grew them in his garden, and he gave me like 5 pounds. And there's no way I'm going to eat all these in time before they go bad. And so I just did an experiment, and we put them in the food processor and kind of chopped them up in the food processor. I put them in little containers in the freezer, fresh. I didn't cook them or anything. Just put them in the freezer. And then I started making salsa. I take them out of the freezer, thaw them, mix them with the hot peppers and anything, onions, whatever you want to make a salsa with, any salsa recipe. And it was great. Didn't have to cook them. I think just freezing them kind of broke them down, made them a little bit juicy, and
soften them.
I'm not necessarily recommending that, but I did it and I liked it.
Yeah, you may not have to cook them. Just the recipes I found said to roast it before making the salsa. And I think that was, like I said, 2 reasons: to soften them, and number 2, probably to bring out those sugars a little bit.
And I think the freezer did the trick on this. But.
Yeah, that could be true.
Or it just ruined it and broke it down to mush, and
then I had to put it in the microwave.
Exactly.
Just a little bit of water in the bottom.
Exactly.
In the basket.
Yeah.
When we had our retail farmers market in Charlotte back in the 80s, a new Chi-Chi's restaurant came to Charlotte. It was just open, and I was talking to them about supplying them with their produce, and the chef there asked me if I had tomatillos, and I didn't even know what they were. Even though I went to college in California, I'd never heard of them, and he described them, and I went to the Columbia State Farmers Market where they have a lot of specialty produce, and they didn't really know anything about it. But
in the 80s.
Yeah, their specifications were they were supposed to use tomatillos in some of their recipes, and
that might have been.
But anyway, that was the last I ever heard of it. He never asked me if I could supply him with tomatillos anymore.
That's interesting that that was the 80s, and I remember growing up here in North Carolina in the 70s. I had never seen a Mexican restaurant ever.
Right.
And it really wasn't until the 80s. I remember, Rick, that you had been to California and you came back. We had opened the wholesale produce company in Spartanburg.
Right.
And one day you came in and you were all excited because a Mexican restaurant had opened up at Lake, not in Spartanburg, the big city of Spartanburg, but at Lake Bowen, which is like 20 miles up the road out in the middle of the country. And you said, let's go. We're going to go have some Mexican food because I had it in California. It's great. You're going to love it. And I thought, Mexican food? What is that?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I sure do.
Yeah.
I remember I had the sangria and I got sick.
Oh, dear.
I wasn't old enough to have this.
How much did you have? Yeah.
It was like a whole picture. Edwin wouldn't drink it.
I couldn't drink it, could I? wasn't old enough. Maybe I was old enough. What did you say?
I'm just kidding. I don't remember the details. I just remember I got sick. It was because sangria's got wine and fruit juice and all this stuff in it. And it just didn't agree with me.
I love.
There's nothing worse than a sweet drink to make you sick if you drink too much of it.
Yeah.
One other thing while Edwin's on that subject, when I went to college in California, in Pasadena, in 1973. And that's the first time I'd ever had Mexican food. And they had some really good restaurants. And Edwin, you may remember Mahari's.
Oh, yeah. That's still there. Still going strong. It's a good one.
Yeah. And Eduardo's was one. It was on Colorado Boulevard, but
I don't remember.
It's not there anymore. But it was a real fancy Mexican restaurant called.
I think California Mexican food is in a category all its own.
It is. It really is.
It's amazing.
High level white table
whether it's a food truck or an expensive restaurant like that, a white tablecloth restaurant. Yes.
But I was so excited about that when I came home for winter break. I told my dad about it. I said, "Have you ever had any Mexican food?" He said, "No." He said, "You would not believe how good it is." I said, "I'll bet if you open a Mexican restaurant in Hendersonville, it would be a gold mine." And that was 1974 by that time. And he said, "That would never work."
Now there's a Mexican restaurant on every 20 yards.
Oh my gosh. But it's interesting that I learned so much from my chefs, because the chefs that were a little bit daring or on the cutting edge, that they would ask for something unusual and you'd have to go hunt it down, whereas the grocery store's not going to have that. In Florida, early 2000s, there was a lot of introduction of unusual items.
Yeah, it's amazing how cuisine has expanded all over the country. New York and LA, Chicago, places like that probably always had a wide variety. But just in little towns like our little hometown here of Hendersonville, North Carolina, you can get just about anything, any kind of cuisine. So it's amazing.
I can remember
there must be 15 Mexican restaurants there.
There's more than that, I think.
There are a lot of them.
You can find a lot of Mexican restaurants. You'd be hard pressed to find a country diner like we used to have that has the fresh vegetables.
That's true. There's a couple around here, but not very many now. People's tastes have changed.
And I remember when our oldest brother Leon, who's passed away now,
Leon Stepp Jr.
Yeah, when he went to college in Raleigh to North Carolina State, we went to visit him that first year, and Teresa probably remembers this. We went to a pizza place. I had never had pizza in a restaurant until then.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Then they got a Pizza Hut in Asheville, and Edwin remembers we used to go to the Pizza Hut in Asheville all the time.
Yeah, almost every Saturday night.
Oh my God, I loved Pizza Hut when I was in high school.
The only pizza that I'd ever had, we used to buy those Chef Boyardee pizza kits in the grocery store, and you make them yourself at home.
Right.
But as far as going out for a real pizza, that was like a whole new world. when we did that. Teresa,
Yeah.
do you remember going there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It
Okay.
was great fun.
Yeah.
That was like a big night out.
Yeah.
So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time again for another mystery fruit or veggie quiz challenge. We have our Produce Buzzers ready to buzz in and give their answers and try to guess today's mystery fruit or veggie. Are you ready, Produce Buzzers?
Yeah.
Hit it.
Okay. That doesn't sound very enthusiastic.
Oh,
Are
yeah,
you
yeah,
ready,
yeah. I'm here,
Produce
I'm here, I'm here.
Buzzers?
I'm here. Present.
Okay. Most botanists believe today's mystery fruit or veggie originated in East or South Asia. It's first mentioned in writing in 544 CE, Common Era, or AD as some people say, in an ancient Chinese treatise on agriculture. It grows wild even today in India. There's no record of this fruit or veggie existing in Europe until the Middle Ages. It is believed that the Arabs brought it there during their conquests of Europe and interaction with Europe. The first record of it being in England wasn't until 1597 in an English botany book in which it was called a mad or raging apple, a crazy apple, a mad apple. I haven't given you enough clues yet, I know, but we're trying to build up anticipation. Botanically, it is a berry, but it's not sweet. Technically, it's a fruit, but usually used as a veggie. It comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, as well as colors, and it has different names depending on where one comes from. But its name in Europe and England is derived from a mutation of the pronunciation of the Arabic word for it, al-banajan. In the southern United States, they have sometimes been called a guinea squash because they believe it came from that area of West Africa where the country Guinea is today. And indeed, they were popular in Africa long before the Europeans discovered their culinary use. As I said before, when it first made its way to England, it was called a mad apple, and the Italian word for it translates exactly to that, melanzana. Melanzana. This name came to it because, like tomatoes, it was believed by the Europeans when it first arrived that they were poisonous. But its poison, rather than make one sick, was said to cause insanity. And indeed, it is a nightshade like the tomato. It combines very well with tomatoes as the star in one of the most popular Italian dishes, in which it's sliced and baked with a generous portion of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Any guesses yet?
Eggplant.
Yes, ding, ding, ding. Very good.
Good work, Rick.
Well, I didn't put it together until you said Italian dishes, and I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you wouldn't have just a gimme and say like aubergine.
Well, that was close, right? In England and in Europe, they have a different name for it. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Aubergine. They call eggplant aubergine.
What does that mean literally?
It's the color,
It's eggplant.
Yeah.
It's eggplant?
The purple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But aubergine is a color, isn't it?
Well, it can be that purple color, but that's what they call eggplant in England and France and Holland and other places. Not in Italy. In Italy, it's melanzana, which is mela, which is apple, and insana. It's a conflation of insana. It means insane or crazy apple. So, in Italian, they still call it literally a crazy apple, melanzana. But
I like guinea squash the best.
Yeah. But aubergine elsewhere, and that's that corruption of that word, the Arabic word, which was al-badanjan. Al-badanjan. It corrupted into aubergine. And they still call it badanjan in the Arab world. So, so where did the name eggplant come from? That's what we call it here in the United States, and I think they do in Canada. Well, it comes from one of the first varieties that was seen here. It didn't look like the big purple ones that we most often see now. It was a variety that was small, round, and white. It looked like an egg, hence the name eggplant.
Well, I'm getting hungry for eggplant now. I haven't had any in so long.
Eggplant Parmesan is fantastic. And, and in a lot of dishes, eggplant is used as a meat substitute. The chicken Parmesan is very good, but you can throw in eggplant instead of the chicken and have a little healthier dish, although oftentimes the eggplant is also breaded and fried, I think, before they cover it with all the cheese and everything, so it's maybe not too much more healthy.
Yeah, and it will really absorb the oil, so you have to be really careful when you're cooking it, because you have a lot of calories in an eggplant from it soaking the oil up.
I think if the oil's hot enough, it doesn't soak into it.
Yeah.
And then just don't leave them in too long, I guess. Well, that's one of the
reasons. You could just bake it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons they're so popular in dishes. They don't have a lot of nutrition or flavor in actuality, but they have that texture of meat, and they soak up whatever the spices and the juice are, because they are like a sponge. So whatever you're cooking them in, it absorbs that flavor and takes on the flavor of what it's cooked with. But they're widely used in a lot of different ethnic foods, which I like. The Indians use them a lot in their dishes, and in India they're known as the king of vegetables. And it's believed that the oldest curry that's made in India today features eggplant, and dates back to over 4,000 years ago that curry was first made. You may have had baba ganoush at a Middle Eastern restaurant. That's made with eggplant, and one of my favorite sides to go.
What about my ratatouille?
Oh yes, your ratatouille, of course. That was a great recipe. That's another ethnic dish. Thai food, it's used a lot in Thai food. They use different varieties generally than we do here. Although they do have a long purple variety, which is similar to the Japanese eggplant. They have some others. One of the most common is a variety that's small and round with green and white stripes, but just as delicious. We used to make at home eggplant sandwiches, which are pretty good. Slice the eggplant and then put meat and cheese between the slices. You got to go with one of those big eggplants. The bigger the better. Slice it into slices and put meat and cheese between it, and bake it in the oven. And spice it with some garlic, salt, and pepper. That was a nice little treat, and an alternative to bread. I
wonder how it would be for a hamburger. Instead of eating the bun, have a eggplant, have a hamburger in between two baked slices of egg.
It probably would be okay. You want to probably bake that somehow, maybe flavor it with something. As I said, eggplants are not as nutritious as many of the other vegetables we talk about here, but they offer that nice meaty texture to vegetable dishes. So as a meat alternative, that helps with your health benefits from it. But they are one of the best sources of manganese, 11% of the RDA in a half cup serving. And manganese helps the body form connective tissues for bones, nerves, and tendons and muscles. It plays a role in fat and carbohydrate metabolism, calcium absorption, and blood sugar regulation. So manganese is important for that. As far as vitamins, they stand up pretty well on the B vitamins, especially B5 and B6. Again, if you're using them as a meat alternative or perhaps a bread alternative, as we talked about, you're getting a lot of health benefits there from that.
We grew eggplant in our family business, but we didn't grow a lot of it because there wasn't that much demand for it. But Edwin probably remembers having eggplant at the packing house. Yeah.
I can remember we packed them.
So to me, eggplant was always the large size eggplant like most Americans eat. Well, when we opened the market in Charlotte, the farmers market in Charlotte, as I mentioned in other podcasts, the Hindu temple was right across the road from us. And there were like 300 members there, and they would come on Sundays and shop with us. And they were asking for the baby eggplant. Some people call it an Italian eggplant. All we were able to get was the Japanese eggplant, like Cynthia's probably familiar with. That's really long. It's like a long eggplant. Well, they wanted the baby Italian style eggplant, and we actually started bringing that in, and they love that size because the way they cook with it is different than, say, the way the Italians typically cook it. But they taught my wife, one of the ladies taught my wife how to cook it, and it was excellent. I know it had garlic and onions and hot peppers and ginger and a lot of different spices, and I'm pretty sure she baked it in the oven. But I've got to see if she still remembers how to cook that, because it's been so long since I've had it. I've actually forgotten.
So is the Italian eggplant more like a globe?
Yeah, it's really a baby eggplant. It is egg shaped, but it's smaller in size, maybe the size of a baseball, But it's just like a miniature eggplant, and I'm sure you've probably used that, haven't you, Cynthia?
I try not to get the really big ones.
Yeah.
Because because it yields so much.
Right. Well, these are actually genetically different. I mean, when they're mature, they're small. Do you ever use those, Edwin or Teresa?
I've never used them.
I've never used them myself, but I've had them in a lot in Indian cuisine, Thai cuisine. When you look at the many, many different varieties of eggplant, they are one of the most varied. I mean, there's small round ones, are green, they're all different colors, they're different shapes. Yeah.
But they have much more flavor than the big eggplant.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the big eggplant is kind of really not, it has to take on flavors from everything else.
Yeah.
These are more concentrated and
right.
But you still need the spices to make it good.
Yeah. So that's it for our mystery fruit or vegetable of the day, the eggplant. Such a versatile fruit with so many different varieties, shapes, sizes, and colors. Congratulations, Rick, on guessing the mystery fruit today. You did well considering my terrible, not so easy clues. So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment on Produce Buzzers podcast. Yes, I know it's not your favorite, but you got to endure it because we have to do a homegrown. Teresa, what is our pun of the day?
Why couldn't the pepper practice archery?
Okay, why couldn't the pepper practice archery? Rick, what do you think?
Because he was bow-legged?
That doesn't make any sense. It's not even worth a groan.
Exactly.
But you have to.
Did you hear the question?
When you shoot a bow and arrow, you have to proper stance with your legs.
Bow and arrow. Bow. Okay.
Okay, why? Let's get that.
But thanks for playing. Moving along.
Okay, Teresa. Why what is it?
Why couldn't the pepper practice archery?
Why?
Because it didn't have an arrow. Habanero, yes. Okay.
Okay, enough of that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, enough of that. I hope these puns aren't leaving a bad taste in your mouth, listeners, especially after we give you so much about these delicious vegetables that hopefully are leaving a very good taste in your mouth. Thanks for joining us again. Hope to see you next time. Good night. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page. And check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.